Hello, welcome to Big 20, where we go behind the GM screen. My name is Dan. I am joined by
Mike
and Eric.
What are we talking about this week, Eric?
Well, this episode we're going to talk about collaborative city design. What the hell does that mean?
So, as all good things do, it starts with Mike, right?
Right.
So, at this point, about a month ago, we were playing our normal game, and it was a side adventure. It was kind of a downtime day. We were short on people. And he plops down this little map in front of us that was nothing more than a street in Grayhawk City. And we adventured in this, like down this street, very Diagon alley-ish, right, if you will.
It was an alley.
It was an alley, right? So that got my gears churning, right? So I've been a patron of Dyson's Logos maps for a long time. And there's a lot of great cartography online right now. So I thought to myself, like, I want to peanut butter and jelly this, right? I want to mash two things that I'm interested in together. So what if we take one of these kind of maps, right? Big scale, like large city maps, and we overlay like a clear hex grid, right? And we turn a city into a hex crawl, right? So I thought, I wonder if this has legs, right? How would this work? Because the hex crawl goes back to almost the beginning of the game, right? It's one of those staples. You have dungeon crawl, you have hex crawl, you have, city adventures. I want to see, like, can we mash these two together in a way that, like, is fun for players? Because what I envision is you would do this sort of like in the vein of Dresden Files, where you're creating your city together, right? So, like, a good example is Grayhawk City, Mike, is broken down into quadrants, right? Like, you have, like, this is the what do you call it? The
different
artisans.
quarters. It's
Right,
not really.
quarters.
It's not really quartered, but it's quarters, city quarters.
Sure. So,
Like
like,
a borough.
yeah,
Yeah.
the GM could seed things like these are important, like these are locations I really want, right? But beyond that, you say maybe today, and I say, I don't know. What do you guys think? Could you do an entire, like, is this enough? Or would you want to see this more as a downtime in between big adventures? Like, first off, does this suck? And do we need to think of something new to talk about?
No, I think I don't know. I think that what you're kind of in uncharted territory, at least as far as I know, because what it sounds like to me is there's some supplements out there. There's a big one that just the Kickstarter just like rocked the world, the strongholds and streams or whatever the fuck it was called. So it's a lot of downtime stuff where you can do stuff in a city, or doing things with your followers and dealing with that drama and whatnot.
Oh man, how granular could you get, right? So you hex crawl this little squadron of town, and then
Hex overlay.
There you go.
It's fucking perfect,
Right.
Mike's already ready for this idea,
Yeah.
right?
He's been doing that
awesome.
for years.
I bought it last year and I haven't used it.
Like so many things. So then you have this awesome strongholds guide, right? And you drill down even further, like, oh no, we're going to spend an entire day filling in this one. This is now a stronghold, right? This is a tower in the middle of this town. This is the rabbit hole that you can go down. That's not beating the shit out of people, right?
Right. Well, and
unless that happens in this section of town, right?
Sure. Well, yeah. What it reminds me of is like New York City. All right. Let's say you're doing. Let's pick Waterdeep
Exactly.
just to go away from Grayhawk, or anywhere.
I was going to say Lankmar.
Lankmar.
Ooh.
Excellent choice.
Ooh,
You have one of these big cities, and it reminds me of New York City. And if you've ever been to New York City, or you're from New York City, or you know somebody, that's kind of the way it is. You can have people in New York City.
You've got your 5 boroughs. You've got Manhattan.
Right. And you could, the three of us could be sitting in one place, and within 3 blocks of where we're sitting, we could know of 10 different places, and the other guys would not know of those places. It is so dense, and you could do that in a fantasy setting. And that's what I love about this idea is it kind of incorporates that, you know, exploration within a city, and that never happens. Not in games that I know of.
Along that lines, I also hear a lot about how in London you can tell what part of London someone's from by their accent.
Right.
Definitely.
Right.
You know, I always thought that was interesting.
I had a friend in college who was from Staten Island, I think, and to hear him talk about other parts of New York, it's like it was like what we consider a completely different state, right? Because it's so dense, right? And that's part of what I love about like this. It's not even really a new wave of cartography. It's just we see a lot of these things. People draw these awesome, huge maps that have 500 different little squarish shapes. Like, what is that shape? Like, we never get into that.
Like you're talking like the silhouettes of like the buildings and stuff like that.
Yeah. And you go down the streets, like, what is the name of this street?
Right.
And I thought to myself, there's so many good maps out there, like that are going completely it's just wasted.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know,
hell,
Dyson's so much
Dyson's site alone has so much crap. He gives it away because it's like, you know, there's so much stuff on there that you could totally use, and you can make it your own.
Yeah, I think to myself, this kind of hits on a lot of the things that our group enjoys, and I generally think that our group is pretty indicative of most groups, right? I've seen people in shops and in conventions, and I think it hits the high points, right? It gives us an opportunity to roll, right? People love to roll. There's millions of random charts online, right? This is your random bar chart, and there's a random drink chart for your bar chart, right?
Or a random chart for the name of the bar.
Exactly, or streets or whatever.
Tons of them.
And you could just go building by building, street by street. This is what our area is, and let's go adventure in it. Maybe something interesting is happening, right? I'm trying to get at a use for all of these awesome things that we have online.
Well, let me think about this. So what happens a lot in various RPGs is, you know, you get a lot of money and then all of a sudden, hey, I want to open a bar, or I want to, you know, have my
investment
wizard tower in the middle of town. And then it's built and then you're done. And you don't even really, not always contemplate, well, who's my neighbors, right?
Yeah.
So I think where we're starting with is exploring your neighborhood first.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you do. I mean, if you move to a new town, or even a new section of town, especially a big city, and you're out of your element, and you know you're out of your comfort zone, and you're going to look around and you're going to explore your surroundings, and you know you're going to find all these little things. And I mean, just anybody who's ever done just walking through a city, it doesn't even have to be like New York City, it could be any city. The times we've gone to Gen Con and just kind of walked, and we found, you know, cool little restaurants, or, you know, these little shops and things like that. That happens all the time in cities, and in driving, you don't even notice them. So yeah, you could find all kinds of little things, and you could seed all kinds of little things. So if you're talking like a sandbox campaign, or even just some sort of a linear, you know, story plot based campaign, during your off time, during your downtime, do a little city exploring. You could end up tying things to that, or even spinning it off into a different direction. And as most GMs know, that the players love to spin their shit off into other directions that you don't have planned.
Downtime stuff is all in fun and everything, but I'm about to blow your mind. I got an actual campaign reason to do exactly what we're talking about.
Okay.
Filling out a whole city, shop by shop, residence by residence, and that is if your campaign is about characters running a Thieves Guild.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be all. Yes.
Protection rackets. You know, the whole bit. You know, the whole deal.
Then you have the whole other side of it, like city guard
You know, and then it's
this
all
is
about
my
you know,
area.
Well,
territories,
yeah.
things.
I mean, that's just like
Uh-huh.
what was that? Gangs of New York, where you know,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the cops, they were basically a gang too, and the fire department was basically a gang too.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
So if you give PCs a territory within a Thieves Guild or something like that, they're going to know what every block, every bit of that territory,
Rival gangs.
the back of their hand.
right?
Some of the ideas that kind of came up whenever I was thinking about this would be not just in fantasy setting, but we always talk about the beloved Redmond Barons in Shadowrun, right? And going back and what was this? Like maybe it's not what it is now, but what was this? And now it's a dilapidated old, Fortune 500 company, right?
Right.
And what you could do in there,
Right.
or the different types of adventures that you can run in a city in any genre, right? The haunted house adventure exists everywhere, right? Because Mike loves to run the Halloween one-off adventure, haunted house. We literally did a haunted house a few years ago
Works best if it's out in the country or something. Though.
Sure. But there's always stories, like you can incorporate urban legends. Like if you were doing this in a modern Dresden style city game, urban legends, quirks, local gangs, everybody, like that grandma on the corner, like the neighborhood grandma, right? Could be a person on a chart.
Yeah.
Random grandma chart?
Random grandma chart. Exactly. Right? Crotchety old grandma who sits on the porch and just yells at everyone. This type of person exists in any genre. Right? And I know these charts exist, right? There's an entire book. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up because it's a really interesting book. Is Vornheim the city building guide? It's a small hardcover book, built through Lamentations of the Flame Princess by Zach S. And it's just a book about making a city, right? Yeah. So, and it in itself is full of all kinds of charts for the type of thing that we're talking about.
Cool.
And I think so. There's so many layers that you could do. Like this is that rabbit hole, right? We're going down this street. Oh, there's a sewer grate.
Right.
Comes up on a random chart. And if you do enough random sewer grates throughout the city, well, now you have to connect all of these sewer grates. And now you have an underground sewer network.
Right.
That you can go adventure in, and God only knows what's down there.
Right.
It preys on people's love of random charts.
Well, and it also adds a level of wonder and adventure to something that's relatively mundane in the gaming terms. Because, like you were saying, Mike, you build a tower in the middle of a town. Really, all that is a glorified weapon locker, right? It's a place to stash your shit. So, when you start adding these wrinkles and this personality to the environment, that becomes much more lasting and personal for the players, because then it's not just cookie cutter, city number 4. This is my town, and
it's not, this is my tower, I've got it, let's move on. It becomes an important thing, right? Because we know in the real world, IRL, an important building, an important company, an important something comes into town or is built, things begin to develop around it. Communities build, other things come in. So like what?
Hey, you want to have some logic to it.
Yeah. So what would logically happen if a wizard built a tower out on this place? Eventually a town is probably going, unless it's, it's an evil wizard, right?
It's going to be people with trades that cater to wizards.
Right. Or people who just want protection, right? Because generally people aren't going to mess with the local wizard, right? So as long as he's cool with me living down here, that's some free protection,
Right.
And like you can go back, like this is how you would, the history of a town, right? You would take your map and you'd say, oh, this is where it started. This was kind of the center of town, and you can see how it kind of branched out from there. And then you fill it in. Like this week we're doing this hex and we do these little things, and you let the players dictate the pace, right? it could be the whole thing. It could be just a little throwaway thing.
Yeah. Hey, those of you who are viewing, if you want to throw up some ideas, throw up some comments, or
definitely.
please,
If you have your
welcome
favorite random charts, we love random charts.
right? But yeah,
I do have a
Yes.
No, I was going to say I have a concern about random charts, though.
Okay.
Sometimes I like to tailor my own random charts because I'll know if I don't want to abuse certain things. Like, let's say we start hex crawling a city or something like that. Next thing you know, it's, bar, weapon shop,
Right.
You get on a wild run and you could just end up with this really crazy neighborhood that
Right.
doesn't have orphanages or something.
right.
There's always
It's like
there's
Orphans
always
Row.
GM, there's always GM fiat, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes I wonder, and I get where your trepidation is from, but imagine the story that you could then tell if you went on this crazy run of bars and churches, right?
Yeah.
And there's
Right.
just this one
Right.
area. So
Right.
now you have to figure out the story that, like, it forces you in a direction, and I could see how you would want to veto things, or you could create your own charts
You know what's
to
funny?
push things in a direction.
What's funny
Yeah.
about that is, we know a guy who used to say that one of the local towns, every time they built a new bar, the other side would build a new church. So that you could have this whole dynamic of, the Church of Heronius is in this town, and every time they, so the PCs open up a bar, and then it's like, oh, the Church of Heronius has to open up a church right next door to it, because they've got to keep that, make it like a zero sum game, right? So
Yeah. I think there's some value in just making something together, right? Because we know people can get wrapped up in their own character, right? Well, what we're trying to do here is make your environment a character that everybody is a piece of the personality, right?
Yeah.
And if everybody is on board with making the city in the first place, that can be a pretty special place, right? That's the kind of thing that people would then talk about, right?
Right.
We don't talk about the random 20 on a crit chart, right? That happens unless it's in a really epic battle, or random levels here and there. But whenever you create quirky stories together, those are the things that stick with us, it seems to me.
A lot of Snow in the chat says that he was in a campaign where they built a city from the ground up with refugees out in the wild, which is very interesting because that then jogged my memory about the old companion guide, basic expert companion.
Oh, right,
Yes.
right, yeah.
Set, and the companion rules had some good stuff on starting domains. And it was kind of like a hex crawl because, you go out into the wild. Let's say the king cedes you 10 hexes worth of land, whatever mile, however many miles you want to use on that. You got 10 hexes to work with. You go out into that wild, and there was random charts for that. And then you found out like how many resources were on that. Oh, I got, forests or mountains, and then you had to pretty much build it from ground up. So that was kind of like what we're doing
Yeah.
on a bigger scale.
The wilderness, big, like continent level hex crawl stuff, we can draw from, like the same kind of things. Like this neighborhood is stonework, whereas over here maybe this area is really poor and it's all like shanty dirt shacks, right? and things like weather, it can affect it in ways that don't in another area of town, right? It's as granular as you want to get, or however random charty you want to throw at it.
Yeah, it's one thing to explore an existing city that your characters been around for centuries before your characters come around,
Right.
or like the viewers version where you're building from the ground up, then you would almost have, you could randomly roll, oh, so-and-so wants to build an inn, and PCs could step in there and say, nah,
yeah,
we already got an inn right here. Why don't you build it?
Or
Right,
yeah,
so
or
here.
it's like somebody wants to move in and start an inn, but you find out some intrigue about that person, and it's like, do we really want this guy building an inn? He ran an inn back at such and such town, and it he ended up running the Thieves Guild out of it or something.
Yeah. Now that kind of city building reminds me of a lot of Wild West movies and TV and whatnot. You got that one street through town, and all the businesses pop up. And
Old boardwalk. The
next
old
thing you know,
Main street.
the railroad comes through.
So, Mike, part of the inspiration for this is, of course, the Darlene maps of Grayhawk City.
Texas.
Is there? So we were gaming, Eric. We were gaming on top of the Grayhawk City map, which is this kind of map that we're talking about with all the little squares. Like, what is this square, Mike? Is the Grayhawk City map fleshed out? Right? Is that knowable? Is everything detailed?
No.
Or we could inject this even in the most classic of settings.
Yeah.
Truthfully.
I mean, back here on the shelf behind me is like the City of Grayhawk box set, and that map I had out on our game night, it maybe had detailed, we'll say, a couple hundred locations, the major stuff, right?
Yeah, the big stuff. A couple hundred out of what, like 700-800?
Thousands, perhaps.
Yeah, a ton.
Because the map is dense. But what it does is it breaks those neighborhoods, those quarters. It has a breakdown, like if you are looking for bars, or if you're looking for some kind of leather workers or something, it will say in the book, oh, there's D4+1 leather workers, there's D6 taverns. That's allegedly in addition to what's already been fleshed out.
Okay,
right.
But clearly there, even beyond that, there's more buildings, which maybe are probably residences and who knows what. But in European cities, if I'm correct, a lot of those residences are just above the businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have multi-family. It's not like here in the States so much.
Yeah.
You can have a building in Europe that houses multiple families across many levels, right? And some of these buildings are hundreds of years old.
So, going back to the original example, that alley I used was on the Grayhawk City map, and I think there was only one location on it that was actually in the book. The rest of them were just blank buildings that I just fleshed out.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one street.
Yeah, there's nothing preventing a GM from taking complete control of like this hex, like and because you want to run an adventure there, or there's an important person that you want to get there. But then that creates, well, what's down here, and then players can branch out and move on. So I guess now the question I would pose to you is this purely a downtime kind of a thing, or do you think people would be interested in, like, this is the game, right? The mini game is the game.
That's why I was trying to
sit down and fill out the entire thing at once.
That's why I was trying to think of the Thieves Guild idea. Like, what kind of hook would I have to just focus all on city exploration? And that was the first thing that popped in my head.
Yeah. You could also do, and like you said, kind of like the other way around, you could do the City Guard, or something like the Untouchables, right? You're trying to bust up the Thieves Guild, and maybe a special group of adventurers who the king hires, or the Lord Mayor or whatever, and says, hey, you guys did all this cool stuff here. Well, now you're home, and I really need your help because the Thieves Guild's got me by the balls, and we need to do something about this. So yeah, you could totally use that as an adventure in and of itself, and that it also, like I said before, it makes it more personal, and you start caring about your city when things like that start happening, and you're doing things at that level.
This is my neighborhood.
Yeah, this is my neighborhood. This is my town, and so then after you've done that for a period of time, then you start doing the big picture stuff. And then some, demon lord is now threatening my town. And, nobody steps on a church in my town, right? So,
yeah. Well, yeah, it's trying to create the kind of reactions that we hand wave because it's the trope, right? Where I care because I'm supposed to care.
Right.
Right. Well, the hope is that we get you to care in the first place. Then the game takes on a whole nother level when people really start to care about their characters and about their environment. The game goes to a whole other level. Like we've done this. We've had games where people are so into their character that it becomes something special. Right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. You got, where the 2/3 or 3/4 of the party gets knocked unconscious and, there's some sort of death effect or whatever. And there's one person left and everybody's on the edge of their seat because that one person left is the chaotic, neutral, fucking crazy man. And you don't know if that guy's going to actually walk out and just leave you there in that death effect, or is going to drag you out, or, put on your ring of regeneration or whatever. There's always that the investment in those games. And if you could do that, the dream, of course, would be you give that many fucks about an NPC.
Yeah.
You give that many fucks about a street in your town, right?
The other, my brain is like running with this kind of stuff. One of the we've had these charts for forever, and I don't think I've ever used it ever. I know Mike has to a small degree. Is the I'm trying to think of the way to word it. It's the initial reaction or the attitude charts. Like, this person has this disposition to me, right? And if you're in a town, I think this chart takes on a whole lot more value, especially if you are a Thieves Guild or you are, or you're well-known people. Not everybody loves you, or some people might love you passionately, right? And you can play on that chart. And like, what was the game that had supposed to have the really, really good social interactions? Was that Smallville?
Smallville, right? Yeah,
that was the game.
Smallville.
Yeah.
So you take like bits and pieces of that, like this relationship building, but on a little bit more macro scale, right? You have these factions, because we are seeing lots of games. You have factions,
right?
And maybe you're standing with this faction's terrible, and you can get some value out of those. Like, we roll up, we flesh out this particular hex, and it just so happens that it's populated with a lot of people who hate us.
Yeah.
Right. Or hate a particular person in our party because we might represent multiple factions. Then as the GM, you sit back and you just let them go. Right. And it just runs itself at that point.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you could certainly do stuff like that where you have, different, there's a saying, you can't get to the top without stepping on somebody. So, you could do all kinds of stuff as a game master. Bring some stuff up from their past. You could have an NPC or a villain that they faced a long time ago, now in the city causing discord and things like that, going against their, if it's a Thieves Guild, maybe they joined another gang, or maybe they joined the City Watch. Now you're dealing with somebody who knows them well, or at least knows their past. And, you could do all kinds of stuff like that. You could have a whole gang war, like Lies of Loch Lamora level, in Camor, that's another one of those, it's set in one city, and, you could do something like that very easily.
I thought of a couple other excuses to go block, house to house, block by block in a,
trick-or-treating. That's the only reason I can.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to draw on my past Grayhawk experience here. One would be kind of along the lines of the Thieves Guild one, but if you were part of the city tax collectors, then at least you have a reason to go and collect monies from people.
we have often talked, for people who are joining us and only know us from this, we've done another thing. And we've often talked about the regular guy campaign. That's totally doable now because your city, a city is full of just regular people doing regular things.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like something that a 20th level fighter would be interested in doing.
It seems unlikely unless, you know, maybe or you roll into a town. Like, you don't have to flesh out an entire city. I mean, you could roll into Neverwinter, right?
Yeah.
And you just decide to do this in this particular area of Neverwinter. So the 20th level fighter may roll up into a cool old bar. Or
that leads into my second idea on why you would want to explore your neighborhood. This was actually a Brian thing.
Oh, okay.
Our old friend Brian, he...
I think I know where this is going.
No, we're good.
Yeah, his high-level wizard Mortellin decided one day he wanted to run for mayor.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
I totally thought you were
for
gonna,
Mortellin. No.
Do the started brothel.
No, nothing like that. No, this is...
It's a valid business.
I mean, if it's a democratic city, then, it would make sense to go door to door, maybe.
That's a good way
Or
to
at least
sink your gold pieces into something, too.
Yeah, or at least business to business.
Mike's really good at this, right? He throws out one tiny little throwaway idea, and then I start thinking, well, okay, so how many different types of rule structures can you have? You can have a democratic city, you can have a king, all different kinds. Like, what kind of city is it? And that one question can move the entire area into one direction or another.
Yeah. You could do a whole, French Revolution style, city uprising.
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess the whole fun of this as the GM, I think, would be finding those charts, right? And just start doing searches for random charts.
Well, in the chat, they brought up Blades in the Dark.
Oh yeah.
Does anyone know what Blades in the Dark is? I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
that's city block filling on, he says.
Yeah, that's one of the newer games. I've not actually read it, but I've heard a lot of people talking about it. Blades in the Dark, yeah.
Cool.
It's a hex crawl city adventure. Shit, somebody already did it.
No, I don't believe it's that.
No, it's Thieves related.
Yeah, like Thieves Guild related stuff, yeah.
See, the one I draw from is the second edition. It was a second edition accessory called The Den of Thieves, and it was rules on how to run a Thieves Guild.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. It was pretty neat. I used it sparingly. It didn't have anything about city creation, but it had rules on running guilds.
And these are important things whenever you're making a city, right? One of my favorite cities throughout all media is Ankh-Morpork from the Terry Pratchett Discworld series. One of the greatest maps ever created, right? And it's all broke up, and there is a guild for everything.
Right.
I mean, everything. You have Thieves Guild, Assassins Guild, you have Tax Collector Guilds, you have woodwork. I mean, every ridiculous thing has a guild because that's just how it works in that city.
Well, along that lines, if you going back to D&D again, if you want a ridiculous city to try to flesh out, then there's always Sigil from Planescape,
right?
Which is like a city on the inside of a tire. So it's like constantly
you're looking
recursive.
up and you can see people out there. Yeah,
it's crazy.
So good. I mean, it's the kind of thing where just the pursuit of random charts and your your seed locations,
right?
And it does all the work for you, and you sit back and your adventures roll into town, or you come back to town depending on how you run it. And this week we're going to do this, and it's kind of low prep. It's as prepped as you want it to be, right? Like you prep the whole thing, run it as a straight up adventure, or you low prep it and do heavy random charts. because we know as GMs that some weeks you're not feeling it, right?
Yeah.
Or some weeks, some encounters go a whole lot faster than what you were expecting. Or maybe your characters are off level and they're not exactly where you want them to be when you need them to be there. And this is just sitting over here waiting for you.
You never know what's going to catch on.
Yeah. And people love, what do players love more than the shopping spree day, right?
Right.
So what shops are down this alley? What interesting trinkets are there to be?
Well, I know from Shadowrun that players like exclusivity.
Sure.
Like when we were doing Dante's,
Mm-hmm.
we kept going back to there because we wanted to get more access.
We could, right?
Oh, right. Well, yeah, and then there was the prestige of being able to get into the VIP or the 9th level and all that stuff.
We were never searching out dive bars or anything. We were always going to the high end stuff. Yeah.
But if you started out a game in any setting, low level, right? It gives you a goal to shoot for. Like, oh, I can't get into that bar because it's either just for the city guard, or it's a Thieves Guild bar, or it's a nobility bar.
I just think that's a little backwards. In Shadowrun, we were always doing the high class stuff on our downtime, and then when we were on the job, we were always in the slums. And then in D&D, it's like your downtime is in the low part, and the adventures you're dealing with the upper crust, so to say.
Sure, it's whatever suits your group, right?
Yeah. What's the name of the going back to Grayhawk City and kind of doing the exclusivity thing? What's the name of the casino? The
Wheel of Gold.
There's a casino in Grayhawk City, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
Why is this the first I've heard?
Because you don't have enough money to go there yet.
That's right. It's too exclusive. You can't get in.
Yeah.
And I'm a scrub.
Yeah.
Shit.
It's called the Wheel of Gold Gambling House, and it's owned by the mayor. So there you go.
So it's crooked as shit. Nice.
But yeah, as I recall, you have to be of a certain social standing or whatever to get in, or maybe there's sections of it or something. I can't remember.
It's in the high quarter, yeah. So it would go without saying, I guess. You're not going to walk in there looking like a street urchin.
It's a goal, right? A peasant kid from Flea Bottom has this now, like, he wants to go there because he thinks his unknown father is a member there, right?
Right. Or his mom didn't want to tell him that, Joe Blow, the dung collector is his real dad. Oh no, your dad was, he's an important man. He's, the pit boss at the Golden Corral or whatever you said that place was called.
Golden Corral. There's a giant buffet there too.
Well, this keeps me thinking again now, along the lines of the Thieves Guild thing now. Another maybe type of adventure you could run for city exploration is to start out as kids. Do that whole, Artful Dodger,
well, that's
bunch of street urchins and just
what's the classic the Grayhawk novel you challenged me to read, Mike. That's Gord the Rogue.
Gord is just like that.
The first
Beggars
Grayhawk book starts out this way as kids.
Yeah, he's right. It's got beggars and thieves and street urchins. Yeah, it's a very low class.
That's a good point because Gentlemen Bastards start out that way too.
Oh, yeah.
Every hero starts out, everybody starts out young. I mean, there's the seeds for who we become are planted pretty early.
Yeah. And there's got to be a reason why, it's always begged the question of why would somebody become a thief? Because
you have to have your Uncle Ben moment, right? Truthfully, that's how we become a hero. Ben Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
So
the Uncle Ben, like the rice guy?
Uncle Ben, yes. No, isn't it? It's Ben, Spider-Man's uncle.
Oh, okay, Uncle Ben.
Ben and Aunt May.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I went. It was a completely different Uncle Ben.
Yeah. No,
I was like, what the fuck's rice got to do
Ben
with
had
this?
to die for Spider-Man to become what he is.
Yeah, because he becomes something different until Uncle Ben died. Give him some perspective. Right.
So, and Mike said something, and then my brain went off. One of the things we love to do, like, well, now I need food charts for eateries, right? And I need a bunch of them because we have the halfling place over here, and it has particular cuisine, and this is the kind of crazy
it's all cupcakes.
Shit, like, and and we would do this, right? We would go in as a party and say, "Oh, what do they have on the menu?" Well,
that's something we
work up the menu.
Yeah, we don't do much on menus.
I mean, we're getting absolutely nothing done in the grand scheme of things. But
I keep trying to bring it back.
We're having fun, right? And that's all that matters.
I'm going back to the kids thing again, and I'm imagining, if you're trying to do a collaborative city campaign, what you would do is give each player who's a kid their own street.
Oh yeah,
like,
street
and
corner.
then that's I'm from Bell Street, and then they know all, and then they explore that street and know everything that's there.
Wasn't there, Mike? And I know you probably got this out of Dragon. I'm going to guess, right? Because that's all we had at the time. Weren't there begging charts? Like, this is a thing that exists.
My favorite chart.
Yeah,
my favorite the pickpocket chart.
The pickpocket chart.
Yeah.
And
what did it? Random victims.
Pickpocket
victims.
Pickpocket and a random rotten wedge of lettuce,
like half a cabbage and shit.
Yeah,
like, what the fuck is this guy walking around with?
That was some of the best dragon stuff. There was that one time our friend Greg pickpocketed a werebear.
Right.
Seems
he got mugged.
A random thing and then a random pickpocket. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's two charts, one for day and one for nighttime. What? You could run into a vampire.
Though. So you've got the Artful Dodger, right? And he's begging and he's pickpocketing, and he pickpockets a 9th level fighter who then whips his ass or then press gangs him into his servitude, right? That's the whole thing. That's like the beginning of the character's story arc.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I gotta bring that with me next time.
Yes.
I like the random, because I was just like pulling stuff out of my head the last time we gamed, but I have charts for that. Yeah.
That's the whole reason for this entire idea, is to use all of these awesome charts that we've seen.
Just compile
chart after chart. What a great goal it would be to amass like a library of all the random charts from all the blogs, all the Dragon magazines, and you just had this one master list of every random chart for a city. Right? How fun would that be? Or it's terrible, and I have really
the terrible part is the bookkeeping. Someone's got to compile this.
Well, that's
we got to keep track of it as you go.
And party, But I think it would get to the point where, you would want to, right? You would want to.
So one of our viewers, Chadzar, says charts. Bunch of charts. That's something that we should find on the DMs Guild.
Sure.
Has anyone looked?
Yeah.
I haven't looked into that much. Is there something like that out there?
Not 3 days ago, I sent Eric a message and I said, you can get lost on Drive-Thru RPG. Right?
Oh yeah.
Same with the DMs Guild. Same with with these, because there's so much right now.
Oh yeah.
So much.
Yeah, and it's tough because there is so much. You could do probably a DM Guild search for random bar chart, and you'll probably come up with a zillion hits. The problem is sifting through all of that.
Sure.
So and most of it's pretty reasonable if it's 99 cents or or it's pay what you want or whatever. It's sometimes they're really good. Sometimes they're they're just meh, and you can probably just mine that for whatever couple of good nuggets they have in that and just come up with your own.
Sure. That to me, that is what the story of the GM is. The story of the GM is stealing. It's thievery. It's cherry picking the best ideas and the little pieces from all the things that we watch and we read and we play and the players say, and random games that we never play but has this awesome little thing in it. Right. It's DMing is all about stealing stuff.
Right. Stealing and salesmanship. That's about
and making it your own.
Yeah.
You know, because you take 15 things from 15 different sources. No one else has put these 15 things together in the same way that you have. So now it's something new. And it's your own, I think.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh. Shadzar also brings up old Polyhedra magazine.
Oh yeah.
Boy, I have a handful of those, but
those were great. Like that's the other good thing I think about this type of thing is it's all system world agnostic, right?
Oh yeah.
AD&D was a lot better at coming up with that kind of stuff.
That's a good point.
I never knew that was not a world like I had the books, but I never got to play really in that era. I didn't come along until later because I'm a bit younger than the two of you.
You think that maybe the pushing of specific game worlds and things like that kind of got away from some of that stuff?
No, what I think it is here lately with adventure paths and things, storylines are more in vogue than exploration, dungeon crawling, and whatnot.
Yeah.
Any kind of crawl is not as interesting now as just a straight up story.
It's a lot easier to produce. I mean, this is how we write. You write a story arc, right? And then you adventurize it. And that's something that players can complete. And when we know that there's a lot of value in completing something, because this city adventure idea is very open-ended. It's unlikely to ever see completion. So for people who would want that, it'd probably be pretty unsatisfying. But that's the benefit of the story path. The adventure path is it's knowable. There's an end to it.
Beginning and end, right?
Yeah.
Or you play your adventure path, you outsource the bulk of the story, and then you inject stuff like this in between to milk it, to get a little extra value out of your adventure path. Maybe if you want.
Paizo had some good adventure path stuff in the Dragon magazines. So the adventure would be in dungeon. And then in the corresponding Dragon that month, they'd have some downtime stuff that would happen. One of them was, I think, set in Grayhawk City. And so while you're not doing this over in Grayhawk City, there's these other downtime things you could do. And I always thought that was more fun than the actual adventure that was going on.
Well, a lot of times the downtime stuff can be the setup for the adventure, the dungeon delve or whatever that you're doing, so that's the setup, and then the hard adventure is the spike. Right? That's the payoff. So if it's a constant just station to station task resolution, and then that's it. Sometimes you kind of lose that feel, and downtime stuff is important. So I mean,
I think the task resolution leads to difficulty in getting attached to your character because you're not doing personal things, right? In that style game, you need to find a way to inject something that's going to make people feel attached to their character.
Right.
Well, you definitely, So what we're talking about here is an urban campaign where you really have no intention of going beyond those bounds, very far beyond those bounds.
Right. I mean, you could
throw out.
You may not ever have to, though.
Yeah, but if you have to throw out the heroic journey on your Lord of the Rings trek, unless you have a smaller town.
Yeah. I feel like I'm always thinking in the back of my mind, way back when, people didn't travel more than a few miles from where they were born throughout the course of their entire life, right?
Right.
And if you lived in a big city way back when, you probably never left that city.
Right.
Or if you did, you went someplace and you stayed at that other place.
And things were so much more, dangerous for people who went into different areas that weren't their own.
That was the 4th edition Points of Light theme. They were saying how, you're here and this is over here and everything, you're the points of light in this world of darkness. Shedzar's got some a good point here about the adventure path stuff being very pricey for the payoff.
Yeah,
that they should be more like the old school booklets. a 32-page adventure back in the day was packed. You definitely got your money's worth out. Each page.
$6 Dragon magazine, or probably,
and then
probably $4 back then.
And then that gave you more time for downtime stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, yeah, those things, those old adventures. I got a couple of the old modules out the other day, and they were so dense. I was like, oh my god, it's the amount of text, And now it's things are so much more, design wise, they're so much prettier than they used to be. But I don't know, maybe it's just the old guy in me just looking at it and going, you polish it up so much that maybe you lose some of the substance. I don't know. It's just, we've played plenty of those adventure paths, and they're fun. The hardback, gigantic adventures and stuff like that. They have their moments. But I've found in a lot of those, you have to inject your, to make it personal, because it's a framework, and it's, it gives you the big chunks of story, but it does not make it personal for the players at all.
Yeah. And I mean, they have to write it in such a way as to be neutral enough that any type of party can probably play it,
Right.
Yeah.
So it becomes pretty vanilla at that point. And yeah, I think this is where the internet is really good. And like the strength of your GM is to take that and then make it your own and fit your group and get people like interested in it.
Right. And the problem with that is, talk about the $50 price point and all that stuff, is you almost feel pressured to run the story as written, because, especially, and it's not necessarily the case for everybody, but what if one of the players bought the adventure and you're running it? And it's like,
feel obligated.
I kind of feel obligated to give them this and give them that, rather than, pace it out a little bit slower and develop.
Let me know at what point you feel you've gotten your $30 worth, because then we can kind of quit if we have to.
Right. Yeah. So
it's that effort versus payoff thing Mike's always talking about.
Right.
I like
Sheds
what
are
happens in Undermountain stays in Undermountain. And that piggybacks off something that you said earlier, Eric. So what if we're in this big city and we're building it, and down here in this quarter of town, I've done something horrible. People in another section of town may not know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You could spend.
So you could live a double life and do different things in the city.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Had
a disguise. You could have 4 different families.
Right. Yeah.
And that brings up another possibility then.
Okay.
If we're talking about high level characters and you want to do city exploration, this is kind of along the lines of that stronghold and follower thing. You could have your high level characters up in the high quarter, spend all their money in the casino.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could also have your secondary characters, your cohorts or whatever, for a 3rd edition term. Excuse me. And you could have them down in the lower part of the city doing whatnot.
Yeah.
So instead of having maybe a double life, you just are running more than one character.
Right. That's very Victoriana, where you have, like your hard delineation between,
my God,
the classes.
You got to do this with London and Victoriana. Holy shit.
Yeah.
How awesome would that be?
Yeah. I mean, you could really do it with any city in any game setting. I mean, you could do it. It could be downtime for your superheroes. In Freedom City. You got an outing in Freedom City. Let's go walk around and see what we can find out.
See, that'd be great for your friendly local neighborhood Spider-Man, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is my neighborhood, so I kind of need to know what it is.
Right.
Like, it might not be awesome for like Superman level characters, but your Daredevil, Spider-Man kind of guys. Yeah. A street level campaign.
Yeah.
In Mutants and Masterminds, superhero game, sure.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Punisher.
And at that point, random charts become really easy because you just know.
So fantasy campaign.
Okay. Fantasy campaign.
All right.
Thieves Guild, and it's the fantasy version of the Punisher.
Yeah. I'm listening.
Yeah.
Keep it going. But slower.
You're hunting. Yeah. You're hunting the different gangs of the Thieves Guild.
Right. Because Thieves Guild guys murdered your wife and kids,
Absolutely.
and you've got a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. If you haven't watched the
this is a good point.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. If you haven't watched the new Punisher, cover your ears, because then it's really the government.
Oh no. But yeah, and what if, you know, the Punisher, okay, so here's your downtime. You're an advanced, because the Punisher, he's a badass. He's a Marine, right?
Of course.
So you have your 9th level fighter, been to war, comes back, has a family, comes home to find his family is dead. That's exactly what a 9th level fighter would do in the city.
No, yeah, like murder
tear
everybody.
it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. You can't worry about the town if you burn the town down, right?
Exactly.
Shadzard brings up a very good point, kind of like the encounter charts I was talking about. He's saying that there's a day and night. The city, it's 2 cities.
It's true.
This is very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some places are open, some places are closed.
See, this is what I talk about when I talk about the rabbit hole, right? The more you think about it, the bigger it becomes. And so is that a problem, right? Does this then get away from you?
I think it's just 2 separate charts you've got to work from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's like I said, it's 2 separate worlds.
It's
you could be running for mayor in the daytime, and then
running the Thieves Guild at night.
Running a Thieves Guild or hunting down, some Jack the Ripper at night.
Now, I just thought of, once again, I thought of another good urban exploration, really good urban exploration scenario. This could be any genre, but it would be zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fleshing out of town.
Fewer people, but the big deal on any zombie show or whatever is scrounging.
Right. Other people and scrounging. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I play a lot of PUBG, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and the first bit of the game is just gearing up, right? Yeah. So you drop. We've played the Fantasy Flight games that are where you make yourselves. Right?
Into the world.
Yeah. That would be an interesting way to go about that. You're building your city, but you have these awesome scrounging charts and random encounters with zombies or, feral dogs or God only knows what that happens in a zombie apocalypse.
Right.
Like you could run a nearly normal guy campaign.
Yeah.
Just surviving.
Trying to get out of town.
Yeah. Trying to get out of town and building your town.
Yeah.
As you're trying, like maybe you're in the middle of town and you have to fight your way out.
Yeah. Or hey.
That sounds fun.
Have the zombie apocalypse. Do the Walking Dead scenario where you wake up from a coma and it's been 10 years and the town is nothing like you remember it being, because in 10 years a city can change, and then you've got a hex crawl to get your ass out.
You could have been airlifted to a completely different town.
Good point.
Like they had to fly you to Atlanta because little town didn't have what you needed.
See, that's a game where players would be very invested in resource management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you have nothing, little things become very important.
Right.
Kind of like what I talked about before is the story of Zombieland for one character is the story of I just want a Twinkie.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And as funny as that is, it's something that he needed to retain his humanity. Like it was important to him.
Yep.
So on some chart somewhere, there's a fucking Twinkie, right?
And whenever D1000, and it's like, and everything's 1,000.
What was it? It was all ho-hos, right? Everything else is ho-hos. Snowballs, right? Fucking snowballs. And so I'm that character, and I play that game, and I finally hit that random chart, and I get my Twinkie. I'm done. I'm fine.
I'm retired.
This game is over, and it was great.
I think we got to put Shadzar part in charge of this, because now he's blowing my mind with the fact that if you're doing Shadowrun, then there's a third layer of the city, which is the Matrix and all that.
Yep. That would be.
And so going through and finding all the hidden stuff, the Easter eggs that's hidden throughout a city's
AR
net.
stuff.
Yeah. So you mentioned the daytime, nighttime, Eric. Of course, I think of Chuck Palahniuk, and I think of nighttime party crashers, right?
Oh yeah.
What was the
absolutely.
daytime equivalent? I can't remember.
Oh,
This is for anyone who hasn't read the book by Chuck Palahniuk called Rant.
No.
It's absolutely phenomenal, and,
Mike, you
and
need
it
to
takes
read it.
yes,
Yeah,
you do. And it
so
takes
I've heard.
place in a society where the population has increased to the point where they have to segregate society because of traffic and congestion. And you are either a nighttime person or you're a daytime person,
Oh,
right? And that's whenever you get to go out,
Yep.
right?
huh. Isn't Ready Player One kind of like that, where they're like
Ready Player, yeah.
Mm,
Well, population
stacked
is
on top of each
boomed,
other.
yeah, and everything's run down. It's all shit.
they just
and-
stay put?
Well, why would you go anywhere if you could, live in Shangri-La virtually,
Yeah,
right?
right.
It's kind of like technomancers in Shadowrun. Like the virtual world to them is the real world.
Yeah,
If where you're at makes you happy, then who cares, right? Have we beat this? Have we beat this into the ground? So this is something
Maybe.
that I think we could. So
As
so
we do.
now, yeah, and as where I'm really good at over talking the thing. So now the fun would be gather the charts,
Yeah.
yeah.
see what we
Look
can
up some
come
charts.
with, and see how it would shake out, right? Like what could you do in your average 3-4 hour adventure block? Like, is that enough? Right? Because I don't think you want to do more than one block in an adventure, right? So
Well,
is it enough to fill it in and then
Right.
look around in it to get?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. You turn the players loose and you say, all right, explore this hex. Are they just walking down the street reading the signs, or are they actually going in?
Right.
It definitely bears mentioning. It's something that Brandy, who is on our other show, and she's a member of our game group. She's told me she mentioned, and I really took it to heart. She said that not every day can be epic.
Yeah.
Right. Because at that time we were running Horde of the Dragon Queen and the Rise of Tiamat. And that's the way that adventure, and much like many adventure paths go, every day is something, every section is something huge and epic, right?
Right.
Not every day can be epic, right?
Yeah.
And so yes, then you run in the risk of running this city hex crawl thing where maybe this whole hex is pretty mundane and there's not really anything interesting in it,
Right.
that would warrant adventuring.
Mm.
Maybe right now, but there might be a shop that you might come back to.
Or, yeah, a hook of some sort.
Right. And the completest in people, eventually nobody wants to leave the map unexplored, right? No section can
Right.
be left unexplored. So eventually you're going to I would think you would want to flesh out the whole city.
Or
Like,
maybe
not
you're
every
looking,
hex.
maybe you're the type to look for that boring spot and you're going to develop it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Maybe,
Gentrification. Right. Exactly.
Well, it's up to the players to run with it. And if there's nothing to run with, that's where the GM steps up and says, oh, well, maybe there is something interesting here to fill the day, right? To fill
Right.
your
Oh, yeah.
week or
Yeah.
whatever
Or
you
maybe
want to do.
maybe you're a player down that game session.
Sure.
So, rather than, and maybe you don't want to get into the next big thing, do a city hex
Do a
crawl
hex.
for a
Yeah,
session.
do a hex or two if you have to.
Yeah.
You know what would speed this up, Dan? Is
Okay.
if we could somehow incorporate it into a board game like Lords of Waterdeep.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Resource
The
management.
buildings and the resources, yeah.
Right. I mean, well, that I guess this would be a whole other topic, right? It would
Yeah.
be the resource management game of being the wizard with the tower or being the lord with the keep,
Right.
right? Because that's a whole other game. That's making the mini game a little bit larger,
Yep.
like more
Yeah.
front and center.
Yeah.
You get, many layers to this.
Yeah. Who needs a fucking dungeon? Really?
Nobody.
Who needs a dungeon? And I mean, it's still fun, right? But there's so many other things that we can do using the same tools that we already have.
Right. To be fair, there are people, there are players who are very task oriented, and
Mhm, sure.
this may not be for them. This could
Yeah.
certainly be something that maybe if they're missing that game session, then the somebody who's driven to we need to get to the objective may not be too down for
Okay.
something like this. But
Okay, well, let's work on this for a second, because this is you bring up a flaw in the plan, right? So you have somebody who is task oriented and maybe is the fighter type. So they often you read, you give those people jobs, right? Like
You give them tasks, right?
You give them tasks, like you are in charge of initiative, right? Well, maybe, again, this is, you kind of have to know your player, right? Maybe it's their job to be the chronicles.
Yeah.
You know, they take the street, you know, they do the hex and they write down like A3 is a bar named whatever, right? And that maybe that's enough to keep them engaged for this kind of for a day,
Yeah.
right? It's not going to happen every day and they're probably not going to like it. And then if they're really feeling it, then, oh no, some kid just pickpocketed you. What
Right.
do you do?
Chase him down, beat him.
James, I've beaten murder this kid, right? It's like so many characters we've seen. Maybe that's enough to keep a character like that, a player like that engaged.
Yeah, I mean, given enough, you know, input, maybe they would find some joy in whatever you're trying to do. Unless, like you said, the task is go to this area and find out what's going on down there.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
because
get to the bottom of this,
right? Or they haven't paid their vig or whatever. Right. You know, so I don't know.
And I guess then the hope is that even that player who only wants to beat ass, right? And that's fine because sometimes I'm that player. They become invested in the thing enough to where maybe I don't need to beat ass this week.
Right.
You got me thinking now about our friend Brandon, who is not a combat-oriented guy all the time. But what does he actually like in real life? And that's restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
So what if his character goal was to find and review all the restaurants in the city?
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Perfect. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and he creates the Michelin star of Grayhawk City, you know?
He's from Grayhawk City food critic, right?
After your character visits, you know, several dozen of these places, then he would become known, and they would fear his presence,
right? And if you get,
the big badass fighter walks in, and nobody pays any attention to him. Just the dweeby dude who stands there and goes, derivative.
The little halfling whose review could make or break you, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or you have a sandwich named after you,
right?
And, you know,
or he wrote a bad review of this person's last restaurant, and now they want to kill him. So now you need the fighter.
Yeah, bodyguard.
Rabbit
hole.
hole.
Man.
Right.
There you go.
Rabbit hole.
Yeah.
All right. We're just about at that time. Actually, we're over that time.
You
That's
find, you know, it's
okay.
Sorry,
we're not hard and fast on our
anything.
We're hard on our start time, finish time.
I'm pleased with the whole conversation.
Yeah. So if any chart, join our Discord. Any awesome chart you see, any links to drive-through RPGs, or you know, any articles in old Dragon magazines that you find, anything you think is interesting chart wise, let us know. Find it.
You know, if you're not already following us, follow us, so that way you know when we're going on. We're going to do every 2 weeks, every second or every Tuesdays
until my plan comes to fruition and we're doing it 2 nights a week.
2 nights a week, yeah.
That then becomes 5.
And we're just going to do 24-hour streams.
24-hour streams.
And but yeah, you know, join our Discord. We talk about this further. And I think we probably, I think it's got enough legs that maybe we could do a trial of, just kind of.
Let's do a hex sometime.
Do a hex crawl.
Actually,
hex crawl in a city. Yeah.
Play test it.
Yeah, play test it. We'll set up a map and everything.
Yeah, because everything, much like everything on the internet, because there's a million GM blogs. There's a lot of this is all theoretical, right? And you don't know until you do the thing. Right. In practicality, this could not work the way.
Is it kind of the same? Those who can do, those who can't theorize.
Teach, right? Exactly. Like we have a GM show because we're all fucking terrible GMs. Shit.
That's right.
We'll let that out. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us very much.
Right. Yep. And
good times.
We will talk to you guys next time.
Later.